but happy to see everybody here today. Thanks for joining us. So just a little background on this. I don't think any of you have officially been through the ELCA training program. Maybe Jen Ward a few years back. Nope. Okay. So the idea was really through our COO, Jennifer Howard, and Jennifer wanted to really give back to all the CFC volunteers and give them more real world leadership training. One, to help attract new energy into the CFC, but to kind of get you ready to lead teams and lead and motivate people. So we've been contracted, both Allie and myself will introduce ourselves shortly, but really the concept was to give you real world leadership training. Most of this comes from the business world, but a lot of the scenarios and applications that we talk about are related to the CFC, but a lot of good business content. We'll share a lot of book examples and so forth, but Allie and I have both been involved in the campaign for about 8 years, and we've run the ELCA training program for the past 5 years. So that's a little background on the program. The program itself really was, it's a 10-session course. So there's a lot of content. We go through all 5 ECQs, and you are so special that Jennifer Howard actually asked us to do a crash course, and we brought down the content into maybe about a 6-hour, 5 to 6 hour time frame. So we're going to go through at a high level the 5 ECQs. So it's a little background on the program. So today we're going to talk about leading change and leading people. And we'll go ahead and get started. Allie, do you want to go ahead and go first? You can introduce yourself.
Sure thing. So good morning, everybody. My name is Allie Chang Ray, and I am the zone manager for the Gateway region, which is primarily based in St. Louis. I share the Heartland zone with James, and to my sadness, I do not have any loaned executives in the Gateway zone, but James and I will be sharing one loaned executive, Cherie. She's not joining us today. In part because she's already gone through ELCA, I think a couple years ago. She's already an ELCA alum. But I'm pleased to be here with all of you.
Great, thank you. And then I'm James Kernan. I've met many of you or most of you already, been involved in the campaign for 8 years. I'm based in Omaha, Nebraska. I help manage Zone 12, Heart of the Midlands, and co-manage with Allie Zone 13, the Heartland Zone, which is exciting. Right here in the Midwest. And then obviously we put together the ELCA training program as well. So background on me, I've been in the business world for over 30 years. I grew up in the technology space, bought, sold, owner, ran 7 different tech companies. I had a successful exit back in 2006 when I lived in San Diego. And since that time, I actually had a long non-compete, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do from there, but really I enjoy consulting and coaching and training people. So in all practical sense, I formed Kernan Consulting, which is really a training and consulting firm. We do a lot of mergers and acquisition work, primarily with tech companies all around North America. But I'll work with any professional business. And then I run the mastermind peer groups. I've authored 3 leadership books and had a fun career giving back to the business world and helping. But the CFC is something I really enjoy. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel so gratified that both Allie and I are involved in not just training, but helping all of you be more successful with your campaigns. And then you'll understand, especially if you're new to the campaign, you'll understand what we're talking about that servant heart and the attitude of gratitude, when you see firsthand how the work that we're doing in the CFC brings joy to so many people and makes the world a better place because of all the fundraising and helping people locally and nationally in need. It's just such a wonderful feeling. I can't really put words to it, but thank you all for being here. And I'm sure Allie echoes my thoughts there. So here's the quick agenda. We kind of talked a little bit about the original story of ELCA and why we formed it. We'll go briefly through the training program overview. Today, the bulk of the time is going to be spent on ECQ1, which is leading change, and ECQ2, which is leading people. And then we'll wrap up. And I'm hoping it'll be about 90 minutes, but we got a lot of content to go through, and then we'll wrap up. And like I mentioned before, any questions that you have, please go ahead and leverage chat, use chat. You can go ahead and monitor that. We've got Michelle Warner, one of the area directors and account managers as well, that's joined in. And then Allie and myself, we're happy to answer any questions that you have in chat. Okay. All right. So real quick question for you in chat. Go ahead and type your answers. How many combined federal campaigns have you helped lead? How many years have you been involved in the CFC? You know, if this is your first year, it's just one. This will be your first year. All right, Jen, 14. Look at that. 1, 5, 1, 3, 2. Allie, I always love seeing the diversity of the timing. You know, we've got the people that are mature with the campaign, wise, so much knowledge. And then I love the new energy with people that it's first timers or, you know, first, second, third year. So I love that.
Yeah, that's great. That makes me excited to see how they answer the next one.
Yeah. So this is a tougher question, but what interested you in becoming a loaned executive? I hope most of you volunteered for this and not voluntold to do it, but the Loaned Executive Program is a great program, and would love to hear from you. Go ahead and type in chat what interested you in becoming a loaned executive. And Ellie. All right, great answer, Jen. Helping others be successful with their campaign. Saw it as a learning opportunity. Good one, Cynthia. That's perfect. Making a difference with the charities. Good. Growth in my career.
Ah, nice.
Theodore, that's a great answer. It's exactly, you know, the true intentions of the ELCA training program is really career advancement training, giving you real world training. So you'll get a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
A lot of that training.
And I love George's answer because, you know, one of the things James and I are going to try to reinforce during the training, especially in your roles as loaned executives, is the CFC can be a really fun way to bring people together by benefiting others. And while it's not in any sort of official way, because we know the CFC is considered an employee benefit, you know, I know that for me, a lot of my accounts are kind of seeing the CFC team as like the social committee, but doing it for good. So if that's a way to bring together people through a potluck, it's social, do fun, but also give back at the same time. But that's why I really love George's answer.
Yeah, nope, all good answers. Thank you. All right, so the purpose of the program, we talked a little bit about this already, but the ELCA training program really aims to train and cultivate the next generation of federal leaders who help with these three things. One, are grounded by integrity and agile and resistance, who are civically and socially engaged in the community. You know, giving back to the community and getting engaged is so important. And then have the ability to positively influence others. It's all about helping others with that servant heart. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today. All right. Okay, so something else too, we just wanted to share and kind of remind you, because some of you are veterans, you've been involved with the federal government for a long time, but you took an oath, and that's one of the key things that I love about your service is that it's an oath to give back, and just wanted to highlight that for everybody as well. Here are the 5 ECQs that we'll be going through. The training that we have set up, you know, today's session will be leading change and leading people, and then we'll go through the rest of the 5 in the future training classes. So this is a visual snapshot of really the roles and responsibilities and also the acronyms that the CFC has. So the federal government, obviously the CFC is an employee perk through the Office of Personnel Management. And then the teams are all kind of made up at the top of the org chart. It's the LFCC, the local, federal, coordinating committee. All right. And those are volunteers. Those are the boards for each one of the zones. And that's who MP reports to. So we work closely with the LFCC. Some of you are involved in your local LFCC, and we appreciate that. All of you are the loaned executives, the LEs, okay? And that's kind of the next in line. Then there's the CFC chair. The CFC chair is either an agency or installation leader who offers the resources to support the CFC. So the CFC chair is kind of the campaign chair, not the LFCC chair, but it's the CFC chair. So you're involved with multiple offices and hopefully speaking at them and helping drive results, working closely with MP. Then our primary points of contact as account managers are the campaign managers, or we call them coordinators. That's our POCs at each one of the agency offices. We break down each one of the zones in kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the pledge monies are brought in by the top 20% of the accounts. So the account managers typically work really closely with those top 20% of those accounts. Statistically, it's around 15 to 20 on average in each one of the zones, number of accounts, but we do detailed strategic planning, work very closely with them. And then we have an umbrella responsibility with our support specialists for all the other accounts. They're all super important as well, especially in the rural areas, because those little accounts can make a big difference and move the needle to get us to our pledge goals. So those are the campaign coordinators. And then the key workers are really the volunteers in the trenches. And hopefully some of you have been a volunteer or a key worker in the past, but that's really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, where we're having those face-to-face conversations, getting events and campaigns set up, and really doing the work. And in the campaign, what we've learned is many hands makes light work. So the more the merrier, from a key worker standpoint. So that's what we love to see. So the content, typically we're going to go through the leadership principles, and we're going to walk through that. And then we've got a very mini condensed part where we do what's called the application or the scenario planning. Allie will highlight at the end of each one of the ECQs the scenarios that we did in the full ELCA training. Normally during those application meetings, we talk about what we learned that week and then how we apply that to our real world jobs or also the CFC. And then we talk about that and we break in breakout rooms, we talk about that and then report out. We probably won't be doing the breakout sessions because it's such a small group, we can just talk about it. So, but the application to me is just as important or maybe even more important than the content, because unless you apply what you learn, to me it's worthless. So I want to encourage you, I want you to always be thinking about what you're learning, but not just what you're learning, but how to apply what you're learning. Okay, that's critical. So leading change, the first ECQ was really the ability to bring about strategic change from both within and outside the organization to meet the goals of the organization, establish an organizational vision to implement in a continuously changing environment. We know that. So the competencies we'll be highlighting briefly are the creativity, innovation, external awareness, flexibility, resilience, strategic thinking, and vision. Okay. So question for all of you when you think about leadership in chat, if you would type out what does leadership mean to you? What does it look like to be a leader? How would you define leadership? And no answer is wrong because it has lots of different meanings. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. The art of influencing others to reach a goal. Good, Tom. To lead others to accomplishments, good results,
Nice.
accomplishments, to inspire others to be their best. Good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, that's good. A mentor
Mm-hmm.
who seeks to help others. Yeah, there's a common theme there that talks about the team, but the leader's job is really to help explain that vision, keep everybody motivated, right? And hopefully in a positive way. Okay. Get others to commit without coercion. Good. Good, Miriam. So some of you may have seen this graphic in the past, but I kind of like starting with this and just explaining the difference between a boss and a leader, because this to me is the core foundation of, negative management and positive management. A boss drives employees, a leader coaches employees. A boss depends on authority, a leader depends on goodwill. A boss inspires fear, a leader generates enthusiasm. A boss says I, me, and a leader says we. A boss places blame for the breakdown on others, and a leader fixes the breakdown. There's no finger pointing. A boss knows how to get it done. A leader shows how it's done, right? Demonstrates and trains. A boss uses people. A leader develops people. Okay, you get the hint, but there's a huge difference between a boss and a leader, and I wanted to start with that with everybody. The other thing is this is frequently what people don't see, especially in the days of social media now. You can't believe everything that you see, but a lot of people put the good out there. And then when you talk about what success looks like, most people think, oh, success is all the trophies and the medals and the accolades and the recognition. But what people don't see is all the hard work, the daily goals, the good habits, the growth mindset, the disappointment, the failures, okay, the focus, the sacrifice, the tears. I can tell you countless stories. And again, I feel like we learn more about ourselves and we learn more how to overcome obstacles when we face adversity. When everything is easy, I don't think we learn as much. You're just kind of coasting, right? But when we're struggling with something, I always said humans are like tea bags. You find out what kind they are when they're dipped in hot water, right? So when we face adversity, that's what I'm talking about. And we're going to face it, we're going to see it, and we need to overcome it. Okay. To me, that's the true success, that we learn from those and then we move forward. All right. So leadership to me really is kind of broken down into four or five different areas. But the top four for me is really number one is vision. Vision is creating that strategic plan and getting people connected to the plan. Okay. Number two is decision making. It's being a decisive leader. If you have a boss that frequently is like, oh, hey, Tom, that's a good idea. Let's schedule a meeting and talk about that. They want to schedule a meeting for everything. To me, that's a little bit of a red flag. Sometimes, many times that's okay. But if you keep scheduling meetings to talk about the same thing and nobody's making a decision, that's not good. Okay. I think of the Titanic. Titanic needs to move a lot quicker so it could avoid that terrible iceberg. Number three is responsibility. I said this a moment ago, but there's no finger pointing. Leaders don't blame other people. They take the responsibility on themselves for not just what they do, but also for the whole team. Okay. We cover for each other and we stick up for each other. That's important. And then the fourth one really is being out front. And what I mean by that is be a leader. And we'll talk a lot about this in the program. We'll talk about our different personality traits, our God-given gifts. Some of us are more extroverts, some of us are introverts. We're all different. We all have strengths and we all have things we could work on if we wanted to. But we need to take whatever those are and always be out front. Start your meetings on time, end your meetings on time, be respectful, but have those meetings, have those leadership meetings, share the results, share how we're doing, but be out front, be visible, and be out front and lead. And typically it's during the trainings or during the meetings. Okay, that's what I'm talking about there. So other key parts of leadership, number of these, there's five of them, but be encouraging. I like being encouraging and positive. I've worked with people in the past that are just fear mongers. they can walk in the room and you just feel this negative vibe. It's like, ugh, and everybody crunches up and hides in your cubicles. But I've also worked with some great leaders that are inspiring, and you just feel good when you're around them because they're saying positive things and they look for the positive and the good instead of the bad. So be encouraging to one another because it's tough out there. Okay. It's tough. Inspire trust. We have to earn the trust of other people. And one of the key tips we're going to talk about today is, following through on your verbal commitments. If I say I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock, I better damn well be there by 5 o'clock. You need to follow through on what you say you're going to do. So before you commit to that, you got to think about it, make sure you have the time and the resources to do it. But I'll walk through the tips on following through on your verbal commitments. But trust is something that you have to earn. That's really my point. Be instructive. I like showing people how to do things and then them show me how to do it back because I want to make sure that they heard what I said and they understand. Managing, mentoring, these are all important components of leadership. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about interpersonal skills. And this is more of that extrovert. There's a lot of interpersonal skills that we can talk about. The primary one really it's communication. There's lots of different communications that we can demonstrate. But to me, communication is one of the more important skills in any job. There's verbal, nonverbal, public speaking, visual, even writing. During job interviews, I frequently on purpose a candidate would send me the resume and I would go back and forth a couple times to give instructions on how to set up our first meeting via email. But I would go back and forth on purpose because I want to see if they have writing skills. I want to see if they know how to spell properly, if they know how to communicate properly. I wanted to just see what their tone was in the email, right? So that's important as well. But verbal, nonverbal. What I mean by nonverbal is more of like a body language. I was in a meeting just this week, and an unfavorable comment was made about something, and I could see somebody else rolled their eyes, like, they sighed, they rolled their eyes, and to me it was very visual that they didn't like what the other person said. Okay, so be careful of those body cues. I've been in sales my whole life. I feel like I'm an expert at reading body language, and pay close attention to that. So not just the words people are saying, but when they're saying it, what does their body language look like? Are they confident? Are they sitting up straight and facing you? Are they slouched over? Are they tired? Their hands in their pocket? Are they using their hands when they communicate? Are they enthusiastic about what they're saying? Those nonverbal cues can tell you just as much as the nonverbal, because a lot of people don't know how to hide those properly. But if you know how to read them, then it will help you understand where they're coming from. So it'll educate you on what to say. But the nonverbal cues are super important as well. Public speaking, one of the greatest tips I can share with all of you. Go ahead and type in yes if you've done this before. But a public speaking class, like doing a what's the public speaking?
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters. There we go. Gosh, I haven't had enough coffee. I think I'm only on cup number 7.
There you go. So, another one coming your way, James.
But Toastmasters. Okay, Miriam's heard of Toastmasters. Tom, Jeremy. Okay, great. Normally when I bring that up, it only seems like about 10% of the hands go up in the room that they've been involved with Toastmasters. But Toastmasters, if you want to become better at anything in life, you want to become a better public speaker. It's a great way to motivate people, communicate, share what's going on in a positive way. And a safe environment is being around a bunch of other people who want to learn how to be a better public speaker. It's safe. Okay. And it's an international organization. There's groups meeting all around. I think it's toastmasters.org if you just Google it, but you can find a local chapter near you. But it's a great way to become a better public speaker. And then the visual cues, I'm presenting off of a PowerPoint deck, hopefully with lots of pictures. things that entertain you and will captivate you. Many people are visual learners. Okay. You can't just say something and then completely understand it. Just remember, we're all different, right? So I like communicating what we're doing, showing people what we're doing, but also giving them visual cues on what I'm talking about. Okay. Um, and then back to interpersonal skills, another interpersonal skill is really conflict management. And we're going to deal with this. And a key tip in conflict management, whether it's you with someone else or more specifically you mediating for two other people on your team, you just want to listen to both sides fairly. Remove the emotions, speak at their level, try to keep a level head, and then just use your problem solving skills, to really arrive at a solution that best meets the goals of where you're trying to go. Okay. That best meets the goals for the team or for the purpose of that program. So, and it's really important. I use the word listen first. Okay. So be quick to listen and slow to speak. Conflict management is so important. Okay. And then be empathetic. Part of being a good leader is understanding and showing empathy to others. And part of empathy is really listening. You need to let the other person have a voice, talk about why they feel the way they feel. I know sometimes we're all really busy. We feel like we don't have time for that, but it's important that you sit down and try to have that eyeball to eyeball contact where they can talk and you can listen so you can understand. Everybody wants to be heard. That's really important. Okay. Um, and then be caring, show compassion, and listen. I've always said the smartest person in the room is the one who is listening, not speaking. Okay. So I think what I just said is all of you guys are all smarter than me. That's what I'm trying to do. That's a compliment. So there we go. All right. All right. So some other personal skills. We talked about listening already. Negotiation is really important. How many of you remember the old school airplane magazines where it was the Karis negotiating course? Remember the SkyMall magazine and the airplane pockets in front of you back before 9/11? Seemed like they always had those back then. It would always have like the top 10 steakhouses in the country. And oh, I've been to 8 of those. And then it would always have the Karis negotiating course. And I always wanted to take that. I've read several of the books, but I've never done any of the classes. But one of the quotes that he had in that magazine ad was, "You get what you negotiate, not what you deserve." Okay. I don't believe that 110% all the time, but normally you have to ask for things in order for it to happen. So understand that negotiation is a really important skill for all leadership positions. To be a good listener, you've got to have the ability to listen, to use your creative problem solving, right? And really arrive at an outcome that satisfies everybody. And what I mean by that is it needs to be a win-win. You don't want to just take everything away from someone so they feel like it was an unfair negotiation. You don't want to bully them. You don't want to lose your temper. You just want to be calm, cool, and collective. And ideally, you want to get to a win-win where everybody feels good about what you put together. Okay. And then I can't stress the importance of a positive attitude as it relates to your leadership skills. Okay. It's that mindset. You make up your mind every single day. Hey, I'm either going to have a great day or I'm not going to have a great day. And one bad thing could happen and that pushes you off the edge, or you drink too much coffee, or someone cut you off on the way to work. Whatever it is, erase that and just focus on things that you're grateful for and that positive attitude, because our employees, especially when you're in a leadership position, when you're in a visible leadership position, our employees are very much, to me, kind of like kids. They'll do what we do, not what we say. They'll do what we do, not what we say. So you've got to be that example. And if they see you being positive, if they see you being a good listener, if they see you asking good questions, if they see that you care, then the odds are they're going to treat other people the same way that you're treating them. Okay. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And try to do this, a little exercise for today. Try to do this. Never admit that you're tired, angry, or bored today. for the rest of the day. And I don't know what it is, the worldly programming. Uh, I'm guilty of this all the time. My wife will, oh, honey, good to see you at the end of the day. Let's have dinner. Let's talk about your day. How was your day today? Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I had 8 meetings. I did this, I did that. I don't know. It was like I always try to justify how busy I am, to make me feel better or maybe make her feel better. I don't know why I do it. Many of us do the same thing, but try specifically at work, okay, or in your social circle, try for just today to not say that you're tired, angry, or bored. Okay. I remember my mom used to tell me only boring people get bored. So, go outside and go do something. There's a million things that you could go do. So, and then give 3 different people a genuine compliment today. Okay. You have to be genuine. You can't make it up and, it has to be genuine or it won't come across properly. But look for opportunities. Hey, that's a sharp tie that you're wearing today. Just try to give someone a genuine compliment. Hey, you did a great job on that assignment. Thank you for that. That kind of positivity will rub off and it will reciprocate. I can promise you that. I mean, everybody wants to work in a brighter workplace, right? So I want to stress the importance of that positive attitude. Okay. And back on the positive attitude, this is one of the first Beck book references. This book has been out for a long time, but how many of you, just with a yes or a no in chat, go ahead and type a yes or a no if you've read the book or heard of the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino? Nope. Okay. It's an older school book, so I'm aging myself here, but it was a book that I had read just as I got out of college. And I thought it was really interesting, but one of the golden nuggets that came out of that book for me was it was kind of a play off of, why is a dog man's best friend? What is it about a dog that makes that dog man's best friend? Does anybody want to try to take a stab at that in chat? Loyalty. All right, that's a great one. Loyalty. They don't speak. That could be a good quality in many cases. No judgment. Okay, that's good. We're getting closer. Doesn't get mad at you. So Theodore is probably the closest of what I'm looking for. Okay, unlimited love. Yeah, it's that unconditional love is what I was looking for. Forgives. I remember vividly right after I read this book, I had just moved out to Los Angeles from Nebraska, and I lived in a little house, a little 3-bedroom house. I had a backyard with a couple fruit trees and a wooden fence that's all around, and I had a whippet. And he was my first dog since I moved out to California. I had a little doggy door on the side of the house that went in the garage so he can get inside from the outdoor elements. Well, that morning, the dog chewed up a brand new pair of glasses that I just bought. And I don't know if you've been to the eye doctor lately, but it was a fortune back then when I didn't have a whole lot of money, and just bought another pair of glasses recently, and it's even worse now. But I remember how upset I was because my dog chewed on the coffee table was my pair of brand new glasses. And not only did he chew the arms off the glasses, but he also, with his teeth, he shattered one of the lenses. So it was like I had to get a whole new pair. I was so upset. I remember hollering at the dog. I don't think I spanked him, but I was hollering at him, and he just was sad for a minute. And I went to work that day, and I came home, and I was thinking all day long. I was like, gosh, I didn't need to yell at the dog. He didn't think anything of it. But I kept thinking, why did he chew up my glasses? Of all the millions of things he could have chewed up, why my new glasses? Well, when I walked in the door that day, the dog was so happy to see me. He was jumping on me, his tail was wagging, and it clicked. But this is kind of the golden nugget that came from that book, was that positive energy, that unconditional love of how excited the dog was to see me when I walked in the room. So how it translated to me when I read that book, and what I was really thinking about is like, I want to be that person when I walk in the room. I want to say positive things. I want to brighten the room, not darken the room. I want to make everybody feel good. Okay. And thank goodness for all of you. I do not have a tail, so I can't wag my tail. But with positive energy, I try to be enthusiastic and say positive things to people. But I want to brighten the room when I walk in. So try that today. Try to be positive. Walk in the room, be proud, be confident, be positive, and try to brighten the room with what you say and what you do, as opposed to someone who sucks the energy out of the room. Okay. But that was the big golden nugget for me that kind of came out of the book was I love using the analogy of being man's best friend. Okay. All right. So good communication on oral communication, it's so critical, but I've talked about this before, but good communication requires both the ability to speak and to listen. Okay. And a sales statistic, I do a lot of professional sales training for people, for organizations. The statistic in sales presentations is the salesperson is supposed to be speaking only 40% of the time. And the prospect is supposed to, the other person is supposed to be speaking at least 60% of the time. That's kind of the number. And that statistic kind of jumped out at me when I first read that best practice statistic, because you would think that if you're a salesperson, you need to speak, prove your value, make sure you understand what the customer wants. But you would think they would speak more of the majority. To me, that kind of stuck out. So I wanted to share that with everybody, but it points out the importance of listening. And listening is also comprehending. So you can ask clarifying questions and then let the other person speak, and ask more clarifying questions and let the other person speak. To me, that's really, really good communication when you can get to that point. Okay. And there's one-on-one communication, which is very different, versus one-to-many communication. I remember the first time I had to do a speaking engagement in front of almost 500 people. I was terrified. I was a young executive of a tech company in San Diego. And I remember I was so nervous. I remember sitting in the car before I went in to do a presentation. Truth be told, please, just grace, no judgment here. But I remember praying and to calm me down. But I also had a little flask, and I took like 2 sips of whiskey to calm me down, because I just was shaking. I was so nervous. And after putting some gum in my mouth, I ran inside and everything was fine. But, it dawned on me that, I need to practice, the public speaking. You can communicate effectively and connect with a lot more people when you're speaking in front of a group than doing one-on-one. I always felt I was really strong one-on-one. That part was easy, but the one-to-many, that application, it just needed a little bit more time in practice. I need a lot of practice. Okay. So let's talk about integrity. Integrity to me is one of the really, really important parts of being a strong leader. How many of you want to work with someone or report to a leader in an organization of someone that you don't trust and you feel they don't have integrity? I mean, I think nobody does, right?
Yeah,
So
that's tough.
remember, integrity is earned. Okay. And the definition in the dictionary is really the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Okay. And to me, a simpler definition is really doing the right thing when nobody's looking. It's doing the right thing. Okay. And you're thinking of others, not yourself. Okay. You're thinking of others, not yourself. So I don't think I need to talk about that a whole lot more, but everybody understands, being honest and filled with integrity is really important as it comes to leadership, because you want to earn the trust of people. So I talked about this a moment ago, or earlier in the presentation, but a way to earn people's trust is follow through on your verbal commitments. Okay. I went to a workshop actually right when I moved out to California, many moons ago. And this was one of the golden nuggets that I remember coming out of that. It was like a 3-day class. It was more of like a personal development class, but they talked about, I was a people pleaser. And just a real simple, example, somebody would say, "Hey, James, do you want to come to a party next Saturday at my house?" Sure. Yeah. Hey, great. I'll be there. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to make people feel good, but then I already knew that I couldn't go to the party because I had another commitment. So I probably should have said, you know what? On second thought, I can't make it because I've already committed to something else. I can't be there. I just want to let you know. But hey, you know what? Thank you for the invitation. That's what I should have said. But the early me was like, oh, yeah, I'll be there. I'll see you. And then I won't follow through on what I said I was going to do. And I thought it was okay because I was trying to be positive. I was trying to make people feel good. But after I took this class, I realized how important it was, because not only does it erode the trust of me with this other person, but more importantly, it eroded my own trust and confidence in my ability to follow through on what I said I was going to do. Okay. Think about that. That's really important. So the real simple 4-step process is when somebody at work or even in your personal life asks you for something, like, hey, do you want to go to this event? You want to go to this ELCA training that starts at noon? Before you say yes, be quick to listen and slow to speak, but think about it first. Do I have the time to do this? Do I have the resources? Have I committed to something else? Am I going to be able to get it done by the deadline? Okay. After you've thought about those things, then you can say yes or no. If you said yes, then if you're old school, I like writing things down. I got a checklist for everything. Here's a checklist. I check things off as I go. Or with today's technology, put a reminder on your calendar, but write it down so you don't forget. Just me writing things down 99% of the time, just me doing that for a few seconds will force me to remember it. So then I won't forget to get it done. Okay. But write it down so you don't forget, or put a reminder on your phone or your computer. And then to me, the most important part is if you know that you're not going to make it to that meeting on time, if you know you're not going to be able to go to that party because you have another commitment, renegotiate before the deadline. Okay. And what I mean by that is contact that person before the deadline, before noon of you supposed to be there. Call them at 11 o'clock or 11:30, text them, call them, email them, whatever you need to do, and say, hey, I won't make it on time. I'm going to be 15 minutes late. You'll know if you'll be late or you can't go ahead of time. So you need to renegotiate ahead of time. And 99% of the time, like I've been in sales most of my adult life, if I promise a proposal by a certain time, I want to do it. I want to get it done. But there were times where I just couldn't get it done. I didn't have time. So I call, hey, I won't get it done by 5 o'clock, but I can have it to you by 10 o'clock tomorrow. Is that okay? And 99% of the time, they're going to say, sure, that's fine. That's okay. So you want to renegotiate if needed. And then, to me, I'm a taskmaster. I just want to get it done. Just follow through and get it done. Okay. And we shouldn't have said yes in the first place if we're not planning on getting it done. But that's a little secret nugget that I wanted to share with everybody, because again, we have to earn people's trust. And just the simple fundamentals of communicating yes or no, I'm going to do something, makes all the difference in the world of them trusting you. Okay. All right. Leaders also are continuous learners. I love how committed and involved all of you are with this LE program. There's a lot of training that goes into it. Several of the answers that I asked, why are you involved in the LE program? Several of you talked about, I want to learn something new. I want to understand how the CFC works. I want to give back and help. I love that. But I also want to get better. I want to learn and improve myself. And this is a great program, the LE program, the ELCA program, and then just going through the CFC. I learn things every year. I love it. And it's very different than the other work I do with my business clients, because these are nonprofit and federal employee clients that I get the opportunity to work with. And again, I love it. It's so gratifying. But be continual learners, because that's, you're going to get better. You're going to be smarter. And that's the example, I think, that we all want to be. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about public service motivation. And in servant heart leadership. Let me kind of just really focus on the servant heart leadership, because I think this kind of ties it all together. But, for me, when I think about a servant heart leader, it's the philosophy or strategy that I'm going to put other people's needs above my own. Okay. So we all have a purpose and we all have goals. So we'll put the goals together of the team. Um, we have the vision of the office or the agency or the business, whatever example we're looking at. We all have individual ways that we can contribute to that. But as a leader of that unit, I want to understand more about the person, the people involved that are going to help me get there. Because if they're highly motivated and they know that you care, they're going to try a whole hell of a lot harder to get done and put forth that 110% effort than someone who doesn't care, who's someone, you know, oh, big deal. And, that's the example that we want to be, that servant heart leader. And what I mean by that is find out, hey, where do you want to go in your career? I'd have more personal, professional conversations with employees, but I want to understand what motivated them. Were they motivated by money? Were they motivated by verbal recognition? Vacation time or a casual day? What things did they really appreciate the most? But more importantly, where did they want to go with their career professionally and personally? And then I always felt it was my responsibility as a leader to help them get to that point. I'd always try to go above and beyond to help that employee because I want them to help me to get to where we need to go as an organization. So lead by example, be humble but confident, and put others' interests above your own. That's that servant heart leadership philosophy. And that ties directly into the public service motivation of servant heart leadership, of serving others. To me, it's kind of one and the same. All right. So I love this quote where we talk about a team. This was a famous Arturo quote, that individually we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. And this quote is really important because in the CFC, you're going to hear constantly, there's in the state of Nebraska in Zone 12, there's 30,000 federal employees, full-time or part-time or subcontract. There's over 30,000 potential donors. Okay. I hear this every single year. Oh, my $5, that's not going to make a difference. Oh, no, it will make a huge difference. If all 30,000 employees pledge just $1 a pay period over 2025 calendar year, each paycheck, just $1. Okay. What's $1? You can't even buy anything at the dollar store. Now it's the $2 store, right? $1 a pay period. If every single employee did that, we would triple our goal. We would finish 3 times over what our goal is. I mean, think about that. But it talks about the power of us working together as a team and all contributing just little parts, because together we are an ocean. We can make a huge difference if we work together. Okay. All right. And then back as a team, I love this acronym of unity. U is to uplift one another with encouragement. N is we need one another because together we're better. I intensely relate to one another by better understanding each other. Okay, we're all different. We all have strengths, different weaknesses, and we want to embrace those strengths. T is trust one another. We need to trust one another. And Y, yield to one another, learn to delegate or share in the responsibility. Okay. I like looking at things from that standpoint. And then this kind of talks more about, VUCA. The VUCA world is more of a mindset. You can look at the bad or you could look at the good. V, volatility, vision, uncertainty is understanding, complexity is clarity, ambiguity is agility. There's different ways of looking at things. And again, back on that positive mindset, that success mindset, that mindset as a leader is really important, that you're sharing that and you're leading by example by doing that. So we're wrapping up ECQ1, and I wanted Allie to kind of walk through, this was the scenario, the CFC scenario. I wanted Allie to walk through this with everybody because this is what we talked about in our ELCA training class. And so Allie, I'm going to hand this off to you to just walk through quickly.
Okay, great. James, could you go back to the previous slide, please?
Yep.
All right, thank you. And I apologize. My allergies have been bothered, so I do have a bit of a scratchy voice this morning. So the scenario that we're about to go through was based on this particular slide. And what James talked about is exactly right in terms of it is a mindset, but it's geared towards understanding that in today's world, it's very dynamic. There are all sorts of external and internal forces that we cannot necessarily control. And when it comes to the CFC, that impacts what the results are going to look like. When our CFC volunteers are going to be available, when donors may or may not be responsive to any sort of special events, leadership may or may not be available. And so we wanted to try to plant the seed to say, do scenario planning, right? So as the loaned executive, one of the things that you can do to support, whether it's a CFC coordinator or in some of the cases I've seen, the loaned executive is actually executing and acting as a CFC coordinator. So I know for all of you, that's going to vary across the board, but in any case, we know that this VUCA environment, that's what it's called, was a concept that was introduced by the Army College. And it was introduced as a way to think about in preparing for war, not that the CFC is a war or a battle of any sort, but it was to explain that there are all kinds of conditions that we can't necessarily plan for, but we should anticipate. And so if we do that well, we'll have a more successful campaign and we'll more likely achieve the results that we're looking for. So if we understand that things are volatile, but if we have a vision for what it looks like, we can achieve that. Things are going to be certainly uncertain, but James talked about showing compassion. And so if we translate that to understanding, we will comprehend better and therefore be able to navigate through that uncertainty. The complexity, if we can see through it, right, and understand that it's actually going to become more clear for us, we'll gain more clarity. And then all of this ambiguity can be managed if we are flexible and adaptable and apply agility. So I just wanted to go through that quickly, which takes us through the scenario. James, thank you. If you'll take us back to this CFC scenario. So one of the things that we know could or could not happen is that you could have a key worker, right? So in the really large agencies, you've got kind of your lead, but then you have lots of people who work and are assigned to like a unit, et cetera. Once upon a time, there was this ratio of 25-1. I don't know if that's still relevant or not. James said at the beginning, that we know most of the campaigns are probably going to be virtual. And so that's, that ratio is more for an in-person. But nevertheless, in this scenario, we're saying that there's a key worker that had been assigned to this unit that has 100 people. And so CFC campaign kicks off, right, per the CFC plan. Could be a 15-week CFC plan. Maybe this is a place that just decided to do it before the end of the year. They're done by December 31st. But no matter what, within that first week, all of a sudden they're looking around and people are saying, wow, is the CFC even a thing again? Because we haven't done it in a while. And so when you think about trying to support that CFC coordinator, if that's what is happening in your role as an LE, or if you're actually the person executing the campaign, now it's almost like you have to go, this is like a startup. Nobody's ever heard of it before. What do I do starting from step one? So we asked the folks in the room then as part of the ELCA training, we said, okay, knowing that this change is happening and that you've got to work with others so that this is, you've kind of turned the situation around by 180 degrees. We wanted to know then, thinking about what vision, your creativity, external, all those characteristics that James talked about, would you start off with one over the other? Would you try to take like three of them and then focus on that to make this 180 change? That was kind of the thought that we had. So as James said, we are trying to do a condensed version. We won't necessarily be able to jump into that, but I'd like to hear from a couple of you, if you want to put it in chat or if you want to unmute.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we won't have chance for everybody, but you're walking into this situation. You thought everybody knew what the CFC, and so this was just kind of renewing their awareness of it, but actually turns out you're starting from a clean slate. How do you apply what James has just gone through, prioritize that, and turn this around so that you can very quickly gain some momentum so you have a successful campaign?
Yep. Yeah. So any thoughts that you have, it's, I know the examples may be a little confusing of, how you can move the needle and make your campaign more successful by using any of these six, leadership traits. But, the good news. So go ahead and if you want to share in chat, go ahead and do that. The best news that I'll share with all of you, because you're all LEs, you're connected to all of us. And the campaign would be very different if you were working by yourself, because you're not going to be able to learn what's working and what's not working around the country. You're going to be able to have visibility to everything, because we're all connected on a weekly basis. And that's exactly what we do during our weekly team meetings. And several of you were on a weekly team meeting just an hour ago with us. And more importantly, Allie and I felt this was so important of staying connected. So as potential ELCA alumni, when you go through this condensed training course, we're going to hold monthly roundtables to talk about this example. It's like, hey, what's working and what's not working for everybody? And then being successful in the campaign's really kind of easy if you just do more of what's working and less of what's not. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can give you lots of different examples, but Jen Ward just dropped a comment up there. Vision, advertise everywhere to include online. Understanding, making sure everybody has contact. Get more key workers. Okay, that's good. Cherie, be creative. This is your chance to put in CFC in the spotlight. Yeah, creativity for sure. Cynthia, see an opportunity to be creative and innovate. You're not tied to what has been done in the past. Exactly.
Yeah, I
We
like
want
that
to,
one. Yeah,
yeah,
it's clean slate. Yep.
yep. Okay. Great examples, you guys. Thank you. Communicate and push the message out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you all are picking up on the core thing. So you're aware there's CFC training that's coming up in September and then repeated in October. So all these elements that you all are putting in the chat, those are going to be introduced and reinforced during that CFC training. So in addition to what James said, those are also going to help yourselves and the coordinators.
Yep. All right. Um, all right. So the next section that we wanted to go through quickly would be leading people. Okay. So leading change was the first one. Leading people is the second one. The objective is really to lead people toward meeting the organization's vision, mission, and goals, to provide an inclusive workplace that fosters the development of others, facilitates cooperation and teamwork, and supports the constructive resolution of conflicts. Okay. The competencies that we're really going to highlight in this part is really developing others, team building, conflict management, and leveraging diversity. Okay. So, what is creativity and innovation? Okay. Creativity and innovation. So, for me, I love this graphic. I think of who's the most creative person that I can share in the whole world. And the first person that comes to mind is Albert Einstein for me. Okay. Incredibly intelligent. He's a historical figure here for us. Many of us, we've heard stories about Albert Einstein, but I love this quote that he had: creativity is intelligence having fun. Okay. And creativity is contagious. So pass it on. But the CFC is all about having fun. We need to bring the fun back to the CFC. And that's our roles as educators and facilitators in the CFC. And as leaders, we want to make it fun, make it competitive. There's all sorts of silly examples we'll talk about more in the like the CFC or the LFCC roundtables, the ELCA roundtables that I just mentioned a moment ago. But during the trainings, you'll see a lot of the silly examples of fun events that people are doing. But I like the creativity and intelligence as I really look at Albert Einstein. He just, to me, a great example. But creativity is the ability to develop and express ourselves and our ideas in new ways, different ways. That's why all the newbies to the group are so important. We want to mix in that new blood, those new ideas. Um, and I'll talk about one example here in just a few slides. But it's so critically important. Okay, we want to go beyond the usual by stepping outside the box. To me, creativity is thinking outside the box. Okay, a whole nother way of looking at it. Innovation is really the implementation of something new. So the creativity is more of the thought. The innovation is the implementation of that. And then creativity is related to imagination, and innovation is related to the implementation part. It's the application, right? Okay. So in order to have the right culture of success in the business world, I always talk about a culture of success and accountability. What does that look like? You want to create an enabling environment where people feel comfortable to share those ideas, okay, to think outside the box. You want to define innovation of what that looks like for your organization or for your team, and ask for ideas. Hey, it's a safe place to share these ideas. No idea is a bad idea, right? You want to provide guidelines and guidance of what's acceptable, but really give them the freedom to create. That's and it's a safe place. And we've all heard some silly ideas before. We've heard great ideas. We've heard bad ideas. Sometimes it's hard. You got to bite your lip and you don't want to laugh at anyone. But I just love the fun ideas that people come up with and really understand, where they're coming from. And some of the ideas, that's why many hands makes light work. The bigger your team are, the more ideas that you'll get. And again, some of the best ideas are coming from new people or people that, maybe don't even know what the CFC is. They'll have ideas that we never would have thought of. So looking back at the history of the United States, okay, I like looking at famous American innovators. There's so many great innovators throughout time. Benjamin Franklin, right? Thomas Alva Edison. I wrote a book report, I think in third grade on Thomas Edison, the inventor. Henry Ford, Elijah McCoy. There's so many great examples. Um, who are some of the great innovators that you think about when you think of innovation or historical figures? It could be business people in the world, inventors. Who comes to mind? Go ahead and drop in chat. Who comes to mind from your standpoint? Alexander Graham Bell, the Wright brothers. Okay, Jen Ward had a good one. Steve Jobs. Frederick Banting. Nice one, Michelle.
My son has type 1 diabetes, and he's the one who developed an insulin pump. So he's an important one to me.
That's a good one. Elon Musk. He's Elon Musk is also a disruptor. And I'm not talking politically. I'm talking just more from a business world, kind of the way he's designed things. And it's really taken the country by storm with some of his inventions. It's just truly amazing. He's one of my favorites. So another great one is Walt Disney. And to me, it's kind of the old Walt Disney, the old fashioned Walt Disney himself. I love this quote: if you can dream it, you can do it. Okay. If you can dream it, you can do it. Okay. So here's another one. How many of you, just with yes or no, I'm going to give you a quick highlight of his story, but how many of you have heard the real story of Colonel Sanders? We all remember, him. He's the ambassador of Kentucky Fried Chicken, but he's had his ups and downs in his lifetime. So just at a high level, from Colonel Sanders, he grew up in a very troubled family. Okay. He had a hot temper. He grew up in a broken home, kicked out of school, got in fights. Everything that he was involved with failed. He had a failed marriage. got kicked out of school, kept getting fired from his jobs. And it wasn't until he was at the age of 65 where he kept trying. And that's what I love about Colonel Sanders is his perseverance, his drive. He just kept trying to be successful in so many different ways. But at the age of 65, it was when he started going door to door, knocking on doors, was when he started selling the fried chicken. Okay, he was going door to door. Can you imagine someone selling fried chicken door to door today? How awkward that would be.
That's called DoorDash.
Yeah,
Shane.
DoorDash. There you go.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like handing it to you with their
Exactly.
bare hands. It's like, ugh. Anyway, that's what kind of started. People loved the recipe of the chicken, and then he started the franchise. And one went to two, went to three, and he continued. And he's really the first innovator that really developed the franchise model. He maybe sold out a little bit early because then the investors kept him as the ambassador of the brand, which was incredibly smart. But then they took this worldwide and became one of the largest and most successful franchises in our history. Okay. But to me, what's so important is it wasn't until he was 65 years old that he really found true success. Okay. So it just is another example of don't give up. You know, who knows what can happen. And in the combined federal campaign, the one thing I'll tell you is it comes at you like a freight train, and all of a sudden the campaign starts, and every week we get our weekly reports and we set goals, and we're tracking way under goal, way under goal. It's like, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And then all of a sudden the tail end of the campaign, you know, right around, it really kind of starts after Thanksgiving, you know, Giving Tuesday, and then coming into the holiday season where everybody's in that giving spirit, the campaign really takes off. And that's an exciting time. So it's never too late to be successful, even in the campaign. All right. So let's talk about strategic thinking. What somebody type in chat, what is strategic thinking? What does strategic thinking mean to you? It's a tough question. All right, everybody don't answer it at once. Pressure's on. All right, I see people typing. Okay, thinking about a situation and different perspectives. Okay, a plan or a purpose. Good, George. Yep, planning, discussing. Exactly. All right, so strategic thinking is the ability to plan for the future. Okay. And a lot of the campaign planning that we do, I mean, I've written hundreds and hundreds of business plans. I talked about Kernan Consulting, my business, that I primarily work with tech companies all around the country, but normally it starts with strategic planning. I always do an assessment to see what the strengths and weaknesses of the organization are. In most cases, people come to you in the business world when they need help is because they're struggling. You know, if everything was going fantastic, you know, how many people would raise their hand saying, oh, I think I need help with something? You know, only the super, super smart people do that. But most of the time, something's going wrong. And most of the time, it's, you know, they need more revenue, they need more marketing help. So to me, everything starts with a strategic plan. And the campaign is no different. We have a real simple one-page campaign plan that we typically will share with all of the campaign coordinators at each one of the offices. And we'll kind of start with simple things like, you know, here's what the historical numbers have been for your office, and we'll create a goal from that. Maybe we just add 10%, and that's the goal for the number of donors and the number of pledge dollars coming in. So it kind of starts with that. And then, you know, how do we need to get there? What marketing or educational campaigns do we need to do? How do we get the word out in my office? So it all starts with strategic thinking, and it starts with a strategic plan. And in strategic thinking, I really like using this example: think big, think deep, and think in time. Okay. Big picture, think deep. You know, how deep can we go? And then think a timeline, because a lot of our goals need milestones. You know, those are the baby steps that are going to help keep us motivated to see if we're on track or not. Okay. So think in time. That's important. So this is back to decisiveness, but I love the Colin Powell quote. How many of you have heard of the 40-70 rule? Quick yes or no. I would guess most of you are going to say no. Okay. Yep. That's what I'm seeing. Okay. So I heard this a while back and I thought it was amazing to me, but his 40-70 rule was you want to strive to avoid making a decision with less than 40% of the information that you have available. Okay. You want to at least get more information, right? So you can make a good decision. But then ultimately, you want to make a decision before you get more than 70% of the information. Okay. And I just tipped it off by saying before. All right. So he would recommend only make a decision when you get 40 to 70% of the information. That's enough information in order for you to make the right decision. But why is it that you don't want to wait till you get more than 70% of the information? Does that make sense to everybody? So my question is, why is it that you want to make a decision without getting more than 70% of the information? His point, and what I want to emphasize on this is because you want to be decisive and make a decision sooner than later. A lot of people, especially the introverts, the Mensa smart people, sometimes get caught up in what I call paralysis by analysis. You're afraid of making a bad decision, so you overanalyze things, and you ultimately don't make a decision. To me, that's the worst. That's the worst thing to do. You can always correct a bad decision and make it the right decision through course correction and hard work and effort. Okay. Positive attitude. You can fight through that in course correct. All right. But I like making decisions. That's how you move forward. That's how you create momentum. Okay. So remember this quote, because I think it's really powerful and it's going to challenge you. Well, okay, maybe I don't need to wait another week to get more data reports. I've got enough information, I think, in order for either me or my team with that information for us collectively to make the right decision. Okay. All right. So strategic thinking kind of breaks down into these 4 areas. Number 1, seeks hard, fact-based, logical information. You want to get as much information as you can. You want to question everyone's unquestioned assumptions. Okay. Question everyone's unquestioned assumptions. It's also characterized by an all-pervasive unwillingness to expend resources. And then is usually indirect or unexpected rather than head-on or predictable. Okay. So, we've got to look outside the box, think outside the box, get information from different people in order for us to make the right decision. And remember, this is a little bit of a fuzzy graphic here, but in the world of knowledge, I don't know how many of you have seen this before, but in the world of all possible knowledge, if this pie makes up 100% of all possible knowledge, things that you realize is probably about 1%. That green section of the pie, things that you realize We've gone to school, we've gone to classes. These are things that we know. Maybe 1 or 2% is maybe things that you realize you don't know. Okay. So things that you realize you don't know. All right. And then everything else, 98, 97% are things that we don't know. We don't know. Okay. And how do we get to learn things that we don't know? We don't know. Really primarily through other people. Okay. That's why working in teams are so important. But the important point of this too is keep an open mind. Okay. Regardless of what your IQ is, keep an open mind because that's how you learn. So here's a great example of strategic thinking. How many of you have heard the story about that truck on a busy road that was trying to go underneath this overpass and got stuck? And traffic backed up and it backed up and backed up. And there was a family way back, quarter mile, half mile back. And the parents came up and they were trying to look out, it's like, oh boy, this is a traffic jam is we're going to be here forever. So people get out of the car and they're kind of wandering up towards the bridge, the scene of the accident, want to see what's going on. And there were a bunch of guys and gals in suits, and they were all sitting around in real important, suits. They had hard hats on, suits and ties. And it's like, oh, what are a bunch of people in suit and ties trying to work on? Well, they were all discussing ways to strategically get out of this situation. How do we get this truck unwedged without ripping the whole bridge apart? How do we unclog this busy road to get people on their merry way? What can we do really quick to fix the problem? Well, it was the little boy that walked up with his parents, little 7-year-old kid, was kind of looked at things, and he walked up to one of the men in a suit and pulled his sport coat and said, I have an idea. It's like, what? Well, at least the guy was smart enough to listen. And he says, well, why don't you just let the air out of the tires? It'll lower the truck and you just back it out or drive it through. Just, it should lower it enough where you could do that. So that's exactly what they did. They let the air out of the tires. It lowered the vehicle about 6 inches. They were able to back up the truck and problem solved. So, but it was the intelligence of that man that was smart enough to listen to other outside ideas, regardless of where it came from. Okay. Can't judge a book by its covers. So he listened to the little boy. He was like, wow, that's a great idea. And he was bold enough to just do it right in front of everybody, and no one else thought of it. Okay. But again, the answers to our problems come from unassuming places, comes from interesting places. So be tuned in for that. So other ways to improve your skills, you always want to set aside dedicated time, to focus on that. I like putting time on my calendar, time for me to kind of think strategically. I write a lot. And as I get on with my busy day, more things go through my mind. I get more interruptions. I'm thinking about a lot of things. So for me, my quiet time is first thing in the morning. I like setting time aside, to do me things at that time where I can really reflect. I think that's my most creative time. You want to try to uncover your own biases so you can think more clearly about a strategy, your own agendas, your own biases. Realize that those are real and they exist in many cases. And you want to try to just think clearly about what's the best thing for the group. Listen to subject matter experts and opinion leaders in your organization, obtain higher quality information so you can use it in your strategic thinking. So you want to look for credible sources in the team, ideally, but you can get great ideas from 7-year-old kids. Okay. So, and I talked about this a little bit already, but learn to ask good questions to uncover better options. And what I mean by that is clarifying questions so you get a full understanding. Is this idea from a credible source? Is this idea logical? In the business world, I frequently say, well, why do you want to do this? And how are you going to make money? How are you going to make money with this idea? Explain to me where that's coming from. Because it doesn't make sense. If it costs a lot of money and we're not going to make money, then why are we doing it? Okay. That's on the business side. But you want to explore all the consequences of different strategies, the different impact on things, and look at all directions really before you get to the point, making that decision. So what is your vision? Your vision is really the plan to accomplish your purpose or your why. You'll hear us talk a lot about our why in the CFC. I'll warn everybody, especially for the newbies. If you don't know this already, walking up to someone and asking them to give part of their hard-earned paycheck to donate to something they may not know about, it's pretty hard. Okay. You'll walk around the corner. It's like, oh my gosh, here comes James, the CFC guy. I'm going to go the other way. You'll see people running away from you in the cafeteria. They'll run the other way in the hallway. Okay. For the next 4 months when you're wearing your CFC badge. So I always like talking about why are we involved in the campaign? And And the campaign itself, it's very personal to me. It's very personal to you. We all have our stories. Okay. I just want to encourage you to think about what your story is. Okay. Before you go into the field of battle, this is going to help you, but think of why you're involved. And I'm talking about a personal why. And in many cases, I remember I had a coordinator from Eastern Nebraska or Western Nebraska call me. And I picked up the phone, and boy, she just started chewing my ear. I think it was like 3 minutes of her complaining about the campaign. I didn't get this. I don't know this. Why did this change? Who did this? Why? And I was new. It was my first year. I just listened. I just listened. And then I remember the only thing that came to me is I just said, why are you involved in the campaign if it's so bad? And there was a moment of silence. And she said, well, because my sister has cancer and I'm trying to raise money for that cause because that's really important to me. I said, that's exactly it. So everything else you just said wasn't really important. What's important is we need to figure out a way to raise money for cancer research because that's the cause that you care about, right? That's your why. So my point is when I go to talk to people, one of the first things I like saying is like, hey, here's why I'm involved in the campaign. You know, I grew up in Nebraska, really close family. I'm the youngest of 5, but my family, we did everything together. I think of my family every single day. And my father was diagnosed with cancer a while back, and they gave him 6 months to live, and he passed away within 3 months. And then shortly thereafter, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she died 2 years later. So why I'm involved in the campaign is because I want to work for causes like cancer research that I'm really passionate about. And when you talk about a real world story, that's your why. All of a sudden, the walls that people put up, you know, human beings, all of a sudden now we become real human beings because we just shared something intimate with someone that may not have known that about you. And then they're much more intent to pay attention and to listen, you know, share your story with them. And it's a great way to get a conversation going. Okay. All right. So as you probably already know, I love quotes, and I love this one here by Joel Barker. You know, vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time, and vision with action can change the world. This is a great quote from Joel Barker, and this is what we're doing here with the CFC. You know, we have the opportunity to change the world. So back on the business side, I'm going to highlight a book real quick. It's called The Book. The book came out about 12 years ago by Gino Wickman. It was a business book about a business blueprint for a business, and it was called Traction. How many of you guys have at least heard of the book or ever read the book Traction? Go ahead and say yes or no in chat. Nope. Okay. Okay. Most of you know. Wow. All right. Well, it was kind of one of those books like Pastor Rick Warren wrote a book called The Purpose Driven Life. It became so popular that multiple versions of that same book came out, and workbooks and coaching programs and all sorts of things came out of that book. Well, Gino Wickman had the same success more on the business world, and his first book was called Traction. I was given it as a gift from a friend. I read the first chapter. I didn't like it, so I put it down on my nightstand with 10 other books that I'll probably never read. And then a couple years later, people kept bringing up the book Traction. Oh, it's the hottest book in the business world. You got to read it. You got to read it. Well, there was another version called Get a Grip that was, you know, part 2. And then there was another version of the book that was called What the Heck is EOS? And EOS stands for Entrepreneur's Operating System. And I'm kind of a techie guy. I grew up in the technology industry, so that resonated with me. But it was really a Cliff Note version without all the fluff from the book Traction. What the Heck is EOS is just kind of a short Cliff Note version of what the book was. And I got that book. I read it. It was like, wow, all the light bulbs went off. So I started implementing this philosophy in my coaching practice when I work with business owners all around the country. But we talk about these 8 questions, you know, and it's a business structure but I wanted to highlight this because this really relates to us in the CFC as well. And it relates to you as leaders. Okay. But there's exercises that go along with these, but it talks about what are your core values? You know, honesty, integrity, hustle, results oriented. Those are examples of core values that may or may not be important to you, but core values really define not just what the business or the office or the campaign's all about. It talks about who you are as a leader. Okay. So that's your core values. What's your core focus? And core focus is really your why. What's your purpose? Why are we doing what we're doing? I want people to think about that because that's what keeps you motivated in the good times and the bad times. And then more strategically, what's our 10-year target? What's our 3-year target? What's our 1-year target? What's our quarterly targets? And then I even break it down into monthly. And then there's a dashboard exercise that kind of shares that with the leadership team. And then what's the marketing strategy? What are the issues? But if you've not read the book Traction, there's again a couple different flavors. I like that Cliff Note version. What the heck is EOS? But that's a really good business book to read. Especially, it's a great gift idea. You know, the holidays are coming up not too far from now. It's a good gift idea for any business-minded person in your family. But the Entrepreneur's Operating System, they talk about the wheel. And the wheel, normally the business or the why, the mission is right in the middle of the wheel. And at the very top is that strategic plan. And those 8 questions I just highlighted for you is really, they need to be answered in a series of exercises, but then you share that with the whole team to get everybody on the same sheet of music. There's exercises as well in the book that talk about the people, getting the right people in the right seats. Okay. You can have a great football team with all the talented people, but if you've got a quarterback playing center or a left tackle playing wide receiver, you got the wrong people in the wrong seats, you know, regardless of how talented they may be, you're not going to execute. And that's our job as coaches or leaders, that we want to have the right people in the right seats. Okay. The data is really those weekly reports, those scorecards, the measurables, those milestones I talked about. How do we know that we're on track? That's really important to share that with your team members in the campaign. Hint, hint. So we have weekly reports that come out. We'll share that with the coordinators, and the coordinators are expected to share that with the key workers to keep everybody motivated. Leadership, you want to communicate with leadership that, hey, our goal is up here. Hey, we're right on track. Here's exactly where we're going. So you need to share that data. You know, issues, I talked about issues. There's always issues in everything. IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. The processes, automated, documented, and followed by all. You know, that's really training. And then the book talks about traction, and that's the weekly cadence of those leadership meetings. Rocks are, that's Gino Wickman's terminology for goals. So it's really reviewing the goals on a weekly basis, reviewing the data points, talking about issues, and then getting things done so you get traction in the business. That's what that book is all about. So big picture as it relates to strategic thinking, you kind of always want to look at 5 to 10 years in the future, because that vision is what captivates and motivates people. Hey, that's where we're going. It's not where we are now. It's where we're going. You want to dream big and focus on success. Try to use clear, concise language. Infuse your vision statement with passion and emotion. You got to be excited about what we're doing. You want to paint that mental picture of the vision that you want, especially when you're recruiting new people on the team or you're doing trainings to keep people motivated. Have a plan to communicate your vision and statement with others. When I take people through that EOS process, when I take leadership teams through that process of all these exercises, fundamentally, I'll put together a PowerPoint deck and then have them share that at their next all hands meeting, because I want to make sure that their whole company knows what the goals are and where everybody's going, and more importantly, where they fit in. Okay. So remember that as it relates to your key workers, your volunteers in your team, or even in your office today. Many of you are leaders today in your office. You know, make sure everybody understands what's expected of them. You need to always be communicating and be prepared to commit time and resources to the vision that you establish. Okay. So if you couldn't tell by all the football helmets in the background and baseballs and things like that, I'm a huge sports fan. Vince Lombardi is he's a Hall of Fame football coach. He coached the Green Bay Packers early on during the first Super Bowl. And that's Bart Starr right there, MVP, Hall of Fame quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. But I love this quote. He said, if winning isn't everything, why do they keep score? Okay. And in today's world where everybody gets a participation trophy, I like that. I like giving people recognition. I don't want to discount that, but there's a huge difference between winning and losing. And I think in milestones of success, we need to track those goals and KPIs, and we do need to keep score, but communicate to everybody how we're doing. To me, that's what real success is. And it's essentially what we're doing in the campaign. You know, we're going to put campaign goals together for offices, for all these accounts, and then we're going to track weekly, you know, how we're doing. So I think that's important. Okay. So I'm coming down the home stretch. We're going to wrap up here shortly, but what are core values? You know, I talked about core values already, but typically they're a timeless set of guiding principles that define the behavior of what you expect from one another. Okay. Normally, when you're creating core values, you want 3 to 7 as a rule of thumb, no less than 3, but no more than 7. They typically resemble the leaders of the organization. Remember, I talked about the personal core values. Like if honesty, integrity are really important fundamentally to me as a leader, they need to be on my corporate core values statement. Okay. Because leaders were really the mantle of the business and or the office, and that needs to be part of the plan. Okay. Core values also really define the culture of who fits in and who doesn't. Okay. That's a strong statement, but I think that's very important. Okay. All right. So I wanted to also highlight an attitude of gratitude. So there was a great book that was written by James Clear called Atomic Habits. Have any of you read the book or heard of the book Atomic Habits? It's kind of a New York bestseller just a few years ago. Okay, yep. A couple yeses. Yeah. So I'll save everybody $20 because I think most of you haven't read it. But one of the golden nuggets that came to me that James Clear talked about was really this attitude of gratitude. And it was the mindset. And remember, I talked about how the world just kind of beats you down. And for whatever reason, the world tells you it's okay to make fun of people, to laugh at their expense. It's okay to talk about that you're tired, angry, or bored at work. It seems like there's so much negative stuff that the world has that it's acceptable behavior nowadays. And I want to encourage you to be brighter in the office. And the key point that James Clear makes is using one word in your sentence could change the whole tone of what it has to do. And the point I'm trying to make is I don't have to, I get to. Okay. And I'll give you an example. In the morning, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to work. I have to make breakfast for my family. I have to go to 8 meetings today because I'm really busy at work. I have to try to get up early and make it to my son's baseball game. Okay. Did you hear the tone of that? Because I have to do those things. What if I say I get to? I get to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning because I'm alive. I get to go to work because I have a job. I get to make breakfast for my family because I love them. Right. You know, I get to leave work early and go to my son's baseball game because I want to watch him grow up right before my eyes. The one word in that sentence can change everything. And so think about how you're communicating with other people, if it's coming out positive or it's coming out negative. This book is a great example of that attitude of gratitude. And if there's one pro tip I'll share with everybody as it relates to being successful in the CFC, it's, say please a lot and say thank you a lot. You need to be an icon of attitude for gratitude because everybody's a volunteer. We're trying to motivate them to do a heavy lift and to do work. that's going to make a huge difference in the world, in our local communities. And by saying please and thank you a lot, are going to make a huge difference. I can promise you that. So thank you are the two most important words. We is the most important word, and I is the least important word as it relates back to being grateful. Okay. So there's, I talked earlier about some of the assessments. There's another book that's called Strength Finders. I don't know if any of you have read that before, but remember I talked about we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. This was a book I read years ago that really highlighted something, again, fundamentally, that was really unusual for me. Growing up, I played sports my whole life. I grew up in Nebraska, and you're always supposed to work on what your weaknesses are. Well, you know, James, you're a good hitter and you throw the baseball hard, but we need to work on your fielding more. Okay, we need to work on your stealing the bases more. So you're always working on things that you're not so good at. And the world kind of tells you that, not just in sports, but in the world. The book, Strength Finders, really wants you to take the assessment, find out the top 5 strengths that you're really strong in. And I think of the strengths, I think there's 36 strengths altogether. You can take an assessment. If you haven't done it before, there's some free assessment links out there. I think this link on the bottom is one of them, but you can take a free Strength Finders test and it will tell you what your top 5 are. And the concept is there's strengths of the 36 is really broken down into 4 categories. There's relationship building, strategic thinking, executing, and influencing. Relationship building and influencing, number 1 and number 4, those are more the extroverts. The strategic thinking and the executing, those are more of the introverts, okay, as it relates back to like a DISC personality test. But when I work with some clients, I'm doing a lot of training, I like running multiple assessments on the team and then communicating to them, because you communicate and motivate people differently based on who they are. So, but my real point of this is I want you to understand what people's strengths are, and what makes an incredible team is when you mix in people. Like you might have some people that are really good at relationship building, but they don't have strengths in strategic thinking or executing. So you need to have other people that have those as some of their top strengths to mix in the team to balance it out. Okay. I don't need to get better at being an activator if I'm not an activator. I need to focus on what I'm really good at because I'm more motivated and I'm going to do better at that. We just need to add team members into areas of where we're not so strong. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. So Allie, let's jump back into the CFC. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute, but here's another CFC scenario that we talked about in ECQ2. So Allie, you want to take this one?
All right, excuse me, I will. And I'll start with, I just dropped something in the chat. So if you were looking at the Clifton strengths characteristics that James was going over, this is kind of a pop quiz to see how closely you're reading them, because people will ask, what does woo mean? So James, if you'll go back to the previous slide, you'll see that the very last one, because they're listed in alphabetical order under influencing, is woo. And so in the chat, you'll see that Clifton defines woo as a theme for the people who love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. All right, so
Oh, Allie, you went on mute.
sorry about that. Yep.
There we go.
There we go. I'm trying to get back to the slide. So this will help think about this scenario that, James, if you'll go back to that slide, then let's just focus on woo, because we know that we could have all of these different strengths if we wanted to take a look at them. Just as James said, everybody's got a combination of them, but the hope, if you're going to be in your role as a loaned exec or even as a CFC coordinator, you might have a little bit of woo going on. So when you think about then how you're going to coach that out, right? Again, we know that some of you are going to be working with a group of CFC coordinators. We know some of you are going to serve as a CFC coordinator, so maybe you're working with key workers. But thinking about then all of their different characteristics, how that meshes with your own, but knowing that even if you're trying to win over people, they could be, again, your key workers, that is the leader you're trying to win over to guide them to success, or some other situation, right? There is that influence piece. A lot of you put it in the chat earlier when James was asking about what that meant to you when he said, you know, what does it mean for this? What does it mean for that? And many of you talked about leadership, influencing others, encouraging others, right? And this is all part of that woo theme. So again, I know we're coming close to the end. I want to give back some time, but this is another scenario that we went through during the ELCA training and help people think about that.
Yep.
Go
All
ahead,
right, good
James.
point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So real quick, a friendly reminder, I don't think we've sent these out to you yet, but each one of these sessions that we have, the educational sessions, we have a PDF workbook that has even more material in it. But we'll email those workbooks out for you. That's kind of a leave behind. If anybody wants a copy of the decks, the training decks, I'm happy to save those as a PDF and we could send those out as well. But I know we'll be back next week, and we'll see everybody after the holiday week. Here's both Allie and my contact information. Most of you have this already, but I just wanted to drop this out in front of everybody as well. We'd love to hear from you. You know, if you agree and have positive things, you know, reach out to me directly. If you have anything bad to say, please call Allie. And no, I'm just
He
kidding.
says this every time. I've had to listen to this for 5 years, but he is consistent.
No, we'd love to hear from you. So I know some of you we're going to be working closer together, but really looking forward to working with all of you. But wanted to make sure you had our contact information as well. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in today. We're going to go ahead and sign out, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.